Today we're going to be looking at this book that I got at Half Price Books, which is a discount bookstore. And I found it in the clearance section for $3. It is pretty big, and it seems to just cover beginning drawing all the way into some advanced stuff. I'm not really sure. I looked through the beginning part, and that's how I know it has the beginner part. But then it seems to cover things like animals and faces and more advanced drawing stuff. And for $3, I said that was worth it. Big Book of Drawing. And what I think it is, I think it's actually 4 books that they just combined into one big book. So the first one is sketching and drawing, and that's what we'll be covering in this video. This is one I'm really interested in, where it's more loose and I don't know, it seems to have more character. Those techniques. Some colored pencil. Looks like this is ink and colored pencil as well. See, and this is why I'm thinking that it is for beginners, because it covers like the basic materials that you need and basic drawing exercises that you can do. More pencil drawings. Guess this one's ink. First materials to buy. I think once you start getting into papers, that's where papers can be intimidating, because there are so many different kinds of sketchbooks out there that are designed for different medium, and the problem with the cheaper sketchbooks is that you can really only use some pens and some pencils, and there's actually a pretty big difference between cheap paper and nicer paper that's meant for art. This is something I think I need a lot, because I always forget what the markings on the pencils mean in terms of hardness and how dark you can make your lines. And grayscale, so you can see what your pencils or whatever tools you're using is capable of. you hear any weird noises, that's my dog. I've never actually sharpened a pencil like this. I think I'll try it just to see. And I love using charcoal. I feel like with charcoal you can make mistakes with your lines and sort of move things around, kind of going back and forth with white, like chalk or different white medium versus the actual charcoal itself. You can kind of move things around. I kind of view it like sculpting, like with clay. If you add too much, you just take it off. If you take too much off, you can just add it back on. It's very forgiving, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then you got pen and ink. I'm a big fan of pen and ink with like fountain pens. With dip pens, I like the idea, but it is very tedious. I feel like you have to really love the process. And for me, it just kind of gets in the way of making the art. It's one of those things that I've started and then gotten away from, and then started again and gotten away from, and I think it just ultimately it's too tedious for me, especially when you have things like fountain pens that you have to care for less. And now they're making waterproof inks that can handle watercolor, and it just makes the process much easier. And then different erasers. I have a bunch of different erasers, and mono erasers, or like the ones that have the little tiny erasers in them. I have an electric eraser, which I haven't used yet, but I got that for working with charcoal. But I think I'll give that a shot on video so you guys can see. Maybe I'll do a review or something. See if it's worth the money. Here we've got colored pencil. I struggle with color for some reason. Never been really that good with it. For some reason I just can't. I can do it in black and white, or gray, the grays with the graphite, but doing it with color, for some reason my brain struggles with it. Okay, so I guess that was just supplies. Now we get to the exercises. Okay, and I've always known that, because I took art classes in school, that you're supposed to hold the pencil like this, so that you use your whole arm and your shoulder to make the marks. And then when you're doing like precise work, you switch over to this, or when you're doing it on smaller paper. And one of the things that I think is helpful for especially someone who's new is that, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, the basic, printer paper, it's actually very small. And then drawing on that is, it's much harder to begin with that than, a large, 24 by whatever drawing pad. So if you're drawing on 8.5 by 11 paper, what you might want to do is, instead of drawing like a whole face on it, maybe just draw the features like a nose or an eye or something, and really take advantage of that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and practice those features. And you've got exercises, just scribbling. This is also a good way of just testing out your tools and seeing what they're capable of doing. Essentially just doodling and see what kind of lines you can make and what different marks and ways of creating an image. Well, for $3, I can tell you, I think this book is already worth it. Especially if you're a beginner. And cross-hatching. I like the idea of cross-hatching. I like the look of it, but again, it gets pretty tedious. You have to love the process, otherwise it slows things down. Drawing with the brush. Okay, so this is one that I'm really interested in, and I've been practicing more and more with. And so I went and got these brush pens. I have this one and then another Pentel. This is the pocket brush pen. And it is very difficult if you're not used to using a brush to draw with. There's definitely a learning curve, but the reason why is I have arthritis in my hands, and sometimes working with a pencil or a pen is it's really works my hand out too much. If I'm like drawing for hours or something. So it's switching over to a brush, it fatigues it less somehow. And then gesture sketches. This is actually a really good exercise. When you limit yourself by time, and you have to get just the most amount of information laid out because you don't have time to do a really advanced drawing. Contour drawings. I remember doing these exercises in school. See, and this is, the different marks that you make with the different materials, the different tools. Doodling, it really helps you learn what you can actually do with, whatever your tools you're choosing to use. And usually we view doodling as, it doesn't really matter. You're just making marks on paper and no pressure, no stress. See, in this, if this wasn't arranged in this particular order, this could be like all over the paper in different ways, and it would just be just sketching just doodling, but when you can take those things that you've learned from doodling and then boom, you arrange them in this way and now suddenly you have a tree stump. I guess what I'm trying to say is doodling is underrated. Then we get into the basic shapes. Basically blocking out different shapes to create your image. How to draw ellipses, cylinders. Using oval circles. Using your pencil to make sure that you get the right angles and then the right sizing. I know for me, like when I used to sketch, there was just a lot of pressure that you want your sketchbook to look amazing, I think we see like an old master sketchbooks, and they look like you could hang them on a wall and it'd be a masterpiece. We think our sketchbooks have to look like that. Drawing hands, that's always difficult. Well, for most people. And there's some of you out there, hands are like super easy for some reason. Keeping a field journal. If you want to get into drawing, you pretty much have to have a sketchbook or something to draw in and with you 24/7. Because you never know. But you never know when you're going to see something that really inspires you. Something that you like, just the way that it looks. So another thing is that if you decide that you want to be an artist, or that you want to get into drawing, the reality is that from that point on, you really can't say, well, I didn't know what to draw, or anything like that, because if you look at the room that you're in, there's literally thousands of items to draw. And I think one of the most important things is your visual library, right? Your ability to draw stuff from memory, not have it directly in front of you. And you build that library by having that item in front of you and drawing it, and then it enters your visual library, and then you can just draw it from that memory because you've done it before and you've looked at that. The other thing is that you look at the object more intensely and you pay attention to those little details that become incredibly important when, you're drawing it from memory. Things that really make it unique. Now, like if you take this little lip part right here, I'm sure you can actually see that. That little lip part right there, and the way the handle is. You know, once you've looked at the object and you've studied it and you've drawn it incorrectly and then drawn it correctly, you know, then you can draw it from memory, and that it's those little unique things that make it interesting, I think. And that also, like, you know, it convinces the person viewing the object that, you know, it's actually real or it's there, or really just makes it interesting. And of course you got flowers and fruit. I always hate drawing fruit because in school we would have to do them for still lifes. Because, you know, it's like each fruit is unique and very inexpensive. Here we go, still lifes, yeah. And I always found still lifes boring. I understand the importance. But I guess the objects themselves that they would pick for us to draw, I feel like they do their best to pick objects that are, you know, different, not too similar, so that you could practice drawing them, you know, together, and how they sometimes reflect off each other or something like that. But I just always felt that they were boring. Of course, fabric, another difficult thing, but if you can get this down, you know, it makes it easier to draw people and clothes. We're getting the texture, shiny things. Getting the tree shapes. Trees are another thing that for me, are difficult because I'm not sure. You know, obviously it's really difficult to draw them exactly as you see them because the limbs are, you know, so unique. But I always struggle with how little detail you can get away with, I guess I should say. You know, like something like that. This is these up here. And leaves. It's another good thing to practice with. Especially when they're, you know, they're older and they have all this authentic battle damage. More trees. It's a lot on trees. Guess they feel my pain. This seems helpful. Sorry if you can hear my dog. Grass and weeds. I always enjoyed drawing rocks though, for some reason. They're just as difficult as anything else, but I don't know, for some reason I enjoy them. So for book one, I think already it's pretty solid. This is cool, how to do water. More water. Clouds, that's something that, again, I always struggle with how much detail or how little detail you can get away with, but still getting the general feel. Here we go into landscapes. See, and this would be like you're visiting maybe a place that you're not that familiar with, not your home or something, or you're visiting like a relative or a friend and maybe like another country, and you want to just quickly, get a drawing of the landscape. I mean, I like these kinds of drawings. I think that when we take pictures, just for some reason, unless it's like a professional picture or something, it just seems, at least for me, it's less interesting than if I saw a drawing of the same location. And get into animals. Again, not super detailed. People. It's a good overview. And adding color. See, this for me, if I did the drawing and the drawing looked passable, and then I'd have to add color, that's where I get worried. I have to get over that though. Drawing skies in color. Okay. There's a lot of good information in this book, this first part. That's crazy to me. It looks like, somebody did it very fast, but you get that's one of the interesting things about art to me, right? These are just different colored marks, different lines, but you get it, and how accurate this is or isn't. You get the idea that it's maybe not a river, but like a creek or something. Drawing fruit. This will actually be very helpful for me. How to add the color. See, I always struggle with, for instance, I'm guessing this is an orange. But who would have, thought that there would, at least for me, I would struggle with it. Put some blue in there, or put some, some strange color that I wouldn't think would go with it. But it's actually there subtly. It's one of the things I struggle with when I try to get into painting, how to mix colors. Flowers are another thing. I don't mind drawing them. And it's interesting because it's really good practice, right? But for some reason, I'm not I'm not that concerned about how accurate my flower drawings are for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what that is. So I bought colored pencils, and then for Christmas, a friend gave me some chalk pastels, and the color is really vibrant. And I'm looking forward to using them to do something like this. So we'll see how that goes. I'm thinking it's gonna be a struggle in the beginning. A lot of bad art coming your way. Putting it all together. Okay, I think we're wrapping up. Okay, so basic how to do layout, composition, golden mean. Horizon tricks. Don't put things in the center of the page. Okay, a little bit on perspective. Then back to still life. Complex. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I understand the importance of still life is because of things like this, right? Like, let's say for the sake of this image, you're maybe going camping or staying at a cabin and you see this exact scenario and you want to start drawing it. Well, still life will help you. One thing, in case you want to move anything to make it more interesting or things that necessarily don't fit, but then also how the objects interact with each other in the light and how it affects shadows and stuff like that. I think that's really important. And you get that practice through still life, which can be kind of boring. So if you're going to do still life, pick interesting items. Or pick things that interest you. Not terribly complex though. I guess fruit is boring to me, but this I wouldn't mind. More landscape stuff. I mean, one of the things that's nice about this beginning part of the book is it shows you these little tricks or these different ways that different artists solved issues, right? Like how do you do reflections in water? And here's an answer for you. Landscapes with people, how much detail to show to get the message across that that's a person. I think that's really helpful. And your answer might be different. You know? See, and things like this is, I think this is really helpful. You know, you have your drawing that you're doing, but you can have your colors that you're going to use kind of off to the side, maybe in the corner or something. Little color swatches. And I like this one. Pretty jealous of that. Make it look easy. More landscape. Wow, this first part of the book is, I guess it was a whole complete book on its own. It covers a lot. From the basics to pretty good, I would say, intermediate stuff. Little turtle. See, this is what I'm talking about. You know, whatever room you're in right now. Oops. Whatever room you're in right now, you've got, you know, hundreds, maybe thousands of items that you could draw. All of it adding to your visual library, helping you later. Okay, well, it looks like we're going to learn how to draw real animals next. But we'll save that for the next video. Just a little teaser. Gotta get one of these things. This eraser pencil. Well, I think that was definitely worth $3. I think if you can find this book in a discount bookstore, that it is worth whatever price they put on it, which would hopefully be at least half. A lot of good information in here, especially if you're a beginner. That is it for me. Until the next video.